Okay, welcome everyone to the Sustainable Health Live chat. And tonight we have with us Brandon York, who's a fifth generation Maine farmer. And he's going to be talking to us about what it means to be a farmer in today's world. And I am going to put us on gallery view so you can see everybody here. And I will, nope, that's not what I was going to do. Let's see. All right. I am going to put the gallery view here. All right. So, Brandon, welcome. And we've got another 5 people. I'm going to see, actually, I'm going to ask you to unmute, Brandon, and then I think you'll show up in the speaker view. And the,
there we go. There we go.
Excellent. Okay. So, all right. No, I haven't got it. Let's see. This. All right. Brandon, are you there?
I am, yeah.
Okay, I'm not seeing you. I don't know why. Okay. Oh, okay. When you talk, then Marcia's telling me from the other room that she can see you. So I'm going to shut up and let you introduce yourself.
All right, so my name is Brandon York. As Susan said, I'm a fifth generation farmer from Maine, York County area. I believe it might even go further back than that. I've recently gotten into ancestry, did a big project for my bachelor's degree for almost like a family album, and I was able to find pictures of old family members. We used to have a 125-acre farm in Limerick, where it was a 100% working farm, cows, horses, pigs, every type of fruit, vegetable that you can grow in Maine. And they actually had a store as well. So with that, my grandparents, my dad, they all lived on that farm and were able to learn just how to survive. My dad took it to a different avenue with everything when I was a kid, doing it his way. His love for animals, though, kind of got to him as he got older. And I was actually born when he was 45. So I think it was at the tail end of his slaughtering days, but I still got to know what it was like to have animals, take care of them, and then at the end, enjoy, I guess, the fruits of your labor, if you want to say it like that. My childhood was filled with 6 o'clock mornings to 8 o'clock being outside, doing something in gardens. Our entire 2 acres, clear-cut acres, were gardens. We actually had 7 on our property somehow. And then the rest was a giant pig pen. So now as an adult, I want to take the, I guess, mild traumatic experiences of being a child, being forced labor, I guess you would say, and kind of do it my way, and do it in a way that I can respect what I'm doing and enjoy what I'm doing, and kind of give back to my friends and family like my dad did, and his parents and his great grandparents. So yeah.
So you were saying that recently you were on Ancestry and you found out that that your family's been in farming since they came to this part of the world, right?
Yeah, so the Yorks settled in New England. I've actually dated back to 1435.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible just following one lineage, but as soon as they moved to Maine, they were able to settle in Massachusetts, and then York County, Limerick, Leamington, Parsonsfield, that little cluster. I'm in Waterboro, so just really nice foothill area, valleys, and have just been able to make a home and find a home here where it's been successful for them, to grow, to network, And especially in Maine, it's kind of just an easy place to live and do that if you can find property. But even without property, just a little chunk of land that you can call your own and make it your own.
And so are you on the family farm, or are you nearby, or?
The family farm, unfortunately, it with the fire 47, it was a giant fire that came through Maine in multiple areas. It burnt down all of the buildings, the house in Limerick. It took out a lot of York County. Actually, my grandmother's husband, currently where I live, he lost his house and then rebuilt a barn and lived in the barn for multiple years and finally built his house. But the original farm burned down and my dad sold the land because there was nothing left on it. So that part of our family lineage, I drive by all the time. I get to see what it is now, which is kind of sad. It's a couple mobile homes and a bunch of young trees. But hearing the stories when I was a kid from everyone, it was Guy Carl and Rena Carl. They were the ticket in Limerick, Maine. So
Wow. And so so you haven't been on this farm that you have now you said something earlier about that you've lived in little apartments um and so but are you and I thought I heard you say this summer something about your brother or cousin or somebody lives across the street.
Okay. So the house that I'm living at now, me and my family have, I would say, a little compound where this is where I grew up.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
my grandmother lived across the street and owned land. And she owned 3 acres, 2.5 acres. And now my brother lives over there. We've been able to buy land behind us, another 9 acres.
Nice.
And my sister lives on the attached road of that 9 acres. So we can walk through the woods. We actually have a campground out, like a little camp area where there is porta potty electricity, and just go out there and enjoy that. I went foraging yesterday and found a bunch of chaga and
Oh, nice.
polypores that I'm processing. So
Harold's a big chaga and
yeah, it's
mushroomer.
the chaga I found. I wish it's outside right now, but it's probably
Wow.
yeah. I've been watching it grow for a couple of years. I actually had no idea what it was, and I've just gotten into foraging over the last couple of years through just weird little hobby things. I don't know if I'm sure all of you, maybe as you get older, you've just kind of picked up weird, fun things, want to learn something new. And I guess mushrooming has always been something.
Yeah, we had one about this size, if I'm correct, that was on our property, not far from where Jules, his little cabin is. And it was, and Harold used to go with you went with a rasp, right, Harold? You there, Harold? Oh, you have to unmute. Whoops.
Nope.
But he used to take it off with a file. So you used to harvest the chaga over at Chip's house, right?
Yeah, I did. I used to saw somewhat, but what I just did is take off the outer layer. And then next year you can take off the outer layer again.
Oh.
I see Chris hand up. Chris knows something about
But
this.
somebody came and took the whole damn thing.
Yeah, some worker person came in and stole it.
Actually, I don't know anything about it. I don't even know what it is.
So it was, you wouldn't have noticed it. It just looked like a big brown thing growing out of, was it the birch tree or was the birch tree, Harold? Oh, they're back on mute. Anyway, so
it's a mushroom. It's a fungus.
yeah,
Grows on birch. Kind of looks like a big wart on your birch tree, but it's brown.
It also grows on fruit trees.
it grows on fruit trees and birch trees.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
keep each
So anyway, so he would take it off with a file every year, the outer layer, and then it grows another outer layer. I guess so. Anyway, I'll stop and go back to Brandon. So you've got a bunch of so you were telling me earlier about how much you grew this summer, that this summer was kind of a banner year for you in many ways, as it was for all of us, but for different reasons and the same reason. So what is it that you are growing on your farm? How much acreage do you have and what are you growing?
So, Harold, thank you for that information, by the way, about I took the whole thing and now I wish I did not take the whole. I will have a lot apparently, but they will not grow back, so that's sad. But anyway, so this year I've lived back home for 5 years now, and since that I've kind of repurposed a lot of the things that my dad left. He passed away 7 years ago, and when he was alive, he actually owned a flower business and greenhouse business where we had 3 working greenhouses on our property. So we would start seeds in December
Wow.
and just have plants in the house, outside, in the greenhouses till about November. He would get 3 weeks off maybe, and this isn't like a normal 4 or 5 trays that a normal family would have. This is just 200-300 trays
Wow.
getting plants set in. So I wanted to honor his memory and have his buildings be workable in a way that's workable for one person, because he would work all these greenhouses and all this stuff.
Wow.
But it was just insane. And after he passed away, there were 4 of us trying to do the work that he did alone, day in and day out, because he was retired and he was able to. This year, I was able to clean out one greenhouse and actually have it be workable, where I was able to plant squash, pumpkins, get everything ready with tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, and just have it be enough to support, 6-7 people with a little extra. I started asparagus this year. I started strawberries, huckleberries, did a whole garlic bed. I told you, Susan, I'm really resourceful. Anytime I see a pallet on the side of the road, I will throw it in my car. Anytime I see a nice looking log, or I see free bricks on Marketplace, or hear of anybody giving away rocks, I will go get them. And there's little pockets around my yard of stuff that I've been collecting. My dad collected. He was an avid collector of plant pots, even though he would order hundreds of plant pots for his plants because he liked the symmetry and the look of having all the same plant pots. He would still go to the dump, and if there were 100 or 200 sitting on the side of the free building, he would take them all for some ungodly reason. So, just having that, I guess, that just looking into the future, why you might need this weird piece of metal, sheet metal, or a little bit of wire. And with that, obviously having extra time with COVID and pandemic and 5.5 months of no work, getting bigger gardens, building raised beds out of recycled material, actually getting to help friends build raised beds and conceptualize garden spaces that they never thought they could have. I learned a lot about taking earth materials like leaves, sticks, and actually using that as a sublayer of gardens so it could naturally compost itself and break down. And that's something, all this stuff in my backyard, having just that acreage stuff I've needed to burn forever, and being able to put it into a raised bed instead of burn it.
That's great.
I don't know, this year it really brought me down to a place where I feel really, really connected with this property, with my dad. And I see in the future what it can actually be for me as a, something maybe to get out of the regular hustle and bustle of life and turn it into something positive and hopefully, lucrative in some way or another, even if it's just mentally lucrative.
I know Joel Salatin, and I mentioned him a little bit earlier, and I think I talked to you this summer a little bit about him, and he does regenerative farming in Charlottesville area of Virginia. And he was saying that he was waiting for the day when parents would say, yes, my child's a farmer, the same way they say my child's a doctor, that it's such an honorable field. But he's written a number of books about how to, and he started kind of in some ways very small. His father had a farm, and he and his wife took over the farm, but for many years they lived above, they lived in an apartment above his parents so that they could save money. I mean, people, I think, don't realize how, because somewhere in 1970, the Department of Agriculture, made a decision. Butts, I think, was the name of the guy who was the cabinet member, but they made a decision to have cheap food in this country, that they wanted to have quantity food and they didn't care about the quality. And that became very good for industrial farming, but it became very, very bad and very, very destructive for small farms and independent farms. And so Joel Salatin talks about that in his book, and he also talks about what they did. And I know, talking to you, part of what helps you is that you are really resourceful, and that is, I think, one of the hallmarks of people who have farms anyway. You just start looking at that, and one of the things we've talked about in the sustainable health, and we talked about going to the dump and all the things that go into the landfill and the reusing of things. And we have these global supply chains, but we're learning in this past year how fragile some of those might be. And so all of a sudden, all those little collection piles don't look quite as much like trash as they did, and look more like an investment in the future, I guess. But I know, and so you were talking earlier about, so one of the things I wanted you to share with people is how you work two jobs, right, in order to support the farm. And we didn't talk a lot about that before, but if you could just share some of what you go through to keep the farm in addition. So you're working, like your dad was able to work exclusively on the farm, but you have to go into town or wherever you go to work in addition to the farm, correct?
Yeah, and as a child, my dad was able to work exclusively, but he was in the Air Force. He raised 7 children.
Wow.
He worked at a local manufacturing company, 12-hour days.
Wow.
For 38 years. And then he, for some reason, after he retired and was able to retire 3 years early because he never took days off, he was upset that kids these days don't get jobs and how easy it is. So he went down to the town office and got a job at Hanford as the
Oh my God.
produce guy at 65 years old, just to show us how easy it is to get a job. On top of that, he was just working, gardening. I think I told you, we raised pigs. We had 14 sows that would birth twice a year. We had multiple rabbit hutches, meat rabbits. And that was, I don't know where he found the time.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing now that there is not enough daylight in the day. So sometimes he got up a little early, I stay up a little late. I just set up a spotlight in my yard. It looks like Brooklyn downtown basketball court out back, just that nice humming glow of the orange light. And I can see and I can continue to work into the night after 4 o'clock when it gets dark.
Wow.
Headlamps and flashlights, and I have to do it sometimes. Get out and like you said, right now I do only have one job. I was working 2, 3 jobs. I just graduated from college.
Wow.
So doing that and volunteering at organizations and realizing how precious time is and not wanting to waste it all away from my house where we have everything we need right here. Every single one of us, whether we live in an apartment or a house,
Yeah.
it's really, I guess it is 2020. The pandemic really just kind of made everything so much easier to grasp now that all the craziness of all the things that I spent wasted time on.
Yeah.
I just realized how precious time is because I have animals and, as I was saying to you, Saturday or Sunday, we might get snow. It's a big deal for me. And it's a big deal for, buildings and the goats. I need to finish the tin roof on the goats. I have a pile of scraps that I need to figure out all this stuff. So, it's balancing time right now is interesting. I've definitely asked numerous friends, traded, bartered, traded my time at their house for their time at my house, and realized how important it is to network with people, and make connections in a way that's positive, healthy, and sustainable for a long period of time. I think that's through farming, through animals, haying, like anything we can do. Right now, it's just important to create those networks, and so a little bit of somebody else's time could potentially be my time, and vice versa. So.
And teaching people some of those skills, I mean, you can watch a lot. I mean, it's amazing to me what you can learn on YouTube. And I do spinning and knitting, and I have a backstrap loom that my mom got in Guatemala when she was there. And there's actually YouTube videos for how to, set it up and use it. I haven't done that yet, but just that's amazing. But what I do know is that whatever I mean, it's great on a YouTube video, but you still learn so much more when you're in person with somebody, and that they've done it for years and years. It's like every year that it's like practice, and what that you don't even know until somebody's around, and you're teaching them. I think passing on some of those skills, and a lot of people just think that farming is easy. I mean, there was somebody, I can't remember, in the administration this year or in business, that just said you just throw some seeds in the ground, and it's like, not really. There's more to, I mean, they have to meet the requirements of light and temperature, and and sometimes, and then the harvesting is often very difficult too, because when you grow things, sometimes it's easier to grow things, and then all of a sudden you've got so much to do with the harvesting that I know more people who quit gardening because they couldn't keep up with the harvest than that they couldn't get anything to grow. But there's so much that because you're a 5th generation farmer, that no amount of YouTube videos can teach you, or books, or any of that kind of stuff. So I think that's valuable. And I think one of the things about this pandemic is getting people to understand how valuable that is. Or at least I hope that's what happens. And I don't know if you've gotten to teach people who weren't farmers, or whether you mostly just shared with other people who have a farming background.
So actually, it's funny you say that. I'm helping a friend's son who wants extra money for his Xbox. So I didn't realize that, bringing him onto my farm and all of my tools and, some of my equipment, it doesn't really work the best, or it's finicky. So trying to teach a 13-year-old that, just because this knife isn't sharp doesn't mean it's garbage, or just because this, this lawnmower might not go in reverse. Doesn't mean you can't pick it up a little bit and just kind of move it around so it just goes straight. And being able to have that knowledge of how to be resourceful and use things in a way, a lot of people don't actually. It's funny, maybe you asked the question, I totally missed it. If I was a millennial, and it's funny,
Right.
I am a millennial, and I don't, I even agree that millennials are very, it's a whole different generation of people who don't really maybe see the benefit of old things or mildly broken things, but with the knowledge of knowing how to use it in all forms. Because if you can figure out how to use something that's broken when it's brand new, you're gonna be off and running.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my whole childhood, I was not a farmer when I was a kid. I didn't really like being outside, but my dad forcefully brought me outside, my mom, dad. And like, I guess any teenage boy or teenage girl, you don't listen to your parents, but I did. It's little tidbits that I picked up. And now I'm so happy that for the days that I spent out there,
Right.
because I just wouldn't know. And just being able to, you know when to put things in the ground and when to start seeds, or
Yeah.
what different spots look like on a plant, and being able to tell that to people. And like you said too, just being able to give that information to people, going to someone's house and conceptualizing a spot, wandering around, being on the phone with them or FaceTiming with them, talking about sunlight, drainage, and not even needing to be there. Just don't realize how many people want to start something but just have no idea, and being able to share that just a little tiny bit and a little encouragement, just to give them an oomph and a boost of confidence that says you can do it, even in like I said, a 4x4 little spot in your backyard. Just as long as it gets 6 hours of sunlight, you will be fine. you know it's important, I guess, to share that knowledge and just be, keep growing too.
And that sometimes is a source, could be a source of income as well. I was thinking as you're talking, when I was in Arizona, of course, people like to build in such a way that they put shade in their backyards in Arizona because it's hot in the summer and very hot. And I had a friend and a guy who worked for me, who was from the Hopi Nation, and he was not a millennial. He was a little bit older than that. I don't know whether that's Generation X or whatever, but he was a little older than that. But he had, left the reservation as soon as he could get out of Dodge. Basically, he got out, and he was, hip hop and not into, like not into the culture very much. He's gotten more into it more recently. But when I met him, he was like fresh out of the Navy, and he was like, oh yeah. But I had him in my backyard, and I was wondering whether or not I could plant something. And he did this. No, you don't have enough sun. And I was like, whoa. And that's just like, that's what he took in, because he grew up in a culture where that farming, the dry farming was very important. And he just absorbed it. And I was just, I just like sort of stuck back. I didn't even know he knew anything about gardening, but of course he would have, because he would have been like you, or he would have been, he was still, um, you know, he would have had to farm, to grow. They needed to grow food in order to make ends meet and his family. So he absorbed it. And I think that kind of learning is so invaluable, to be around people who know how to do things and that kind of stuff. And I wanted, before I'm going to open it up for questions in a minute, but I just wanted to also talk, because one of the other things that I think that, and we're talking about winter season, this is from Halloween through to Groundhog Day, I'm going to be talking about winter energy, water energy, from a traditional Chinese medicine standpoint. But one of the things is, when we eat in the winter, there's very little green vegetables that you can, it's too cold, especially in the northeast part of the United States, so that people relied on grains and beans and meats and things that they could store. And you were earlier telling me about the root cellar that you have that your dad had put in. And that's another way to make things like potatoes and apples and squash. And you said you're still eating the zucchini that you're storing in your root cellar. So that's really important. But the other thing is that oftentimes people ate meat in the winter because they had that was an available food, and they, it wasn't just, that you had steaks and threw the rest away. You ate everything, from nose to tail because you had to. And so, and I know that you do raise some of the animals, and we talked about some of the animals that you rescued and that kind of stuff. And we talked a little bit about, I think Roberta was in when you were talking about it, but I'm going to sort of ask you to talk a little bit more about that too, if you would.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, having a root cellar just is amazing to have that extra little bit of time with vegetables that you've planted. We have a potato, so my grandmother's basement was always cold enough where we kept potatoes in there until May. And some would
Wow.
go bad, some would have been mouse eaten, and you just, cut off the bad part, I guess, and you can still eat it. And that's the thing that, just being a little scared, but still being able to use it. And with the animals, currently right now I have 5 goats, 2 potbelly pigs, 3 chickens, and 2 ducks. I raised turkeys this season, and I wasn't able to process them because I had too much going on, but I really wanted to process them. I wanted to be that person that took their life, as weird as that sounds, but just to know, because I cared about them, and I just wanted to do that and have that kind of be something that I learn. And I plan on doing it again next year. Just having meat, having that ability to be able to raise animals, it's something, it's important to me. I don't know if.
And you rescued, how many of those animals were rescues?
Oh, they're all rescues now. All the ones outside. I feel like the chickens and ducks, I probably will end up processing them. I will give anyone advice, if you want to get into processing animals, or you want to raise your own animals to potentially eat, only get 1 animal to start, because you're going to love that first animal, and you're not going to want to do it. So if you start with 1, and then 3 months down the road, get another one, make a contract with yourself. And that's what I'm doing. I have to make a contract with myself saying the next animal I get is going to be for the freezer, or it's going to be for a purpose that adds to the farm. Because the ones that I have, I adopted 2 potbelly pigs from the animal shelter, where I signed a will not harm waiver. I love potbelly pigs. We had one when I was a kid, and I just wanted them as pets, and I love them, and they will live happily for the next, hopefully 15 to 20 years on my farm, eating acorns and, restaurant scraps and any other thing I can forage for them. I adopted the 5 goats. I do not plan on eating them. I will breed the females for milk and cheese and have that as a opportunity. But the next goats I have will either be for meat or for dairy. So making that contract ahead of time with myself, just to know that adding another animal and another mouth to feed isn't healthy for my life, isn't healthy for the future for me. the ducks and chickens. A young lady needed them off her property. They just scared her horses. I had actually just had 9 chickens for 6.5 years that lived out back happily and hadn't like laid eggs or on and off laid eggs, but I wasn't going to slaughter them because I love them. They were little dogs to me. They followed me around. I raised them from chicks. And now that I've had that experience of raising them as my pets, now I'm going to kind of turn it into, you know, kind of have chickens either for eggs or for breeding or for processing, and just doing that and just telling myself that, repeating that I'm giving this animal the best life I possibly can so it can keep me alive and keep me healthy. Because if any one of you have gone to the grocery store and taken a steak from the grocery store or a cut of pork or a cut of chicken and then gone to a farm anywhere in your area, the meat we get in stores is not meat. It is so unhealthy looking. I could only imagine the hormones and the water and the things that high yielding farms have to do to get those animals to be as big as they are, as fast as they are. I don't know. It's just something that it turned me off from meat for a while. But now that I'm growing it and raising it myself and having that kind of network with other farmers, I'm going back to it just because I know that they took care of their animals and their animals deserve to be eaten by people who will appreciate the value of their life. Yes, instead of just going to the store and getting meat and not knowing where it actually comes from.
And you were telling me also this summer, like you had the turkey. Were the turkeys rescue also, or were they?
No, the turkeys I raised from chicks.
That you purchased the chicks?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually want to. So every animal that I get from now on is actually going to be heritage breeds.
Okay,
Everything.
great.
I plan on raising turkeys for multiple years and having breeding pairs. I plan on doing that with heritage pigs and next year heritage cows. So starting that process of just keeping like old world ancestral animals alive, being able to do it that way instead of, you know, having white meat birds like we have in every grocery store that only live for 4 months. And it's actually really unhealthy to keep them longer than 2 years. So doing that.
So, but you were also telling me that those, that it was costing you about $75 to raise each one of those turkeys. Is that's right too? Because that's the other thing I think, you know, people, I mean, you know how much it costs to feed your dog, but you know, the farm animals don't live for free either. You have to, you know, you have to feed them as well. And part of, I guess, the regenerative farm thing is you figure out ways to, you know, I know Joel Salatin talks about his pigs are acorn, you know, his hogs are acorn finished, you know, so he lets them go. He has a woodlot and he lets them go in that, and they eat the acorns. And you were saying that, you know, I mean, that does a service to you as well. You don't have quite as many seedlings. That gives the trees that are growing a better chance to live. I mean, there's a whole, you know, ecosystem just within a farm. But also you still do have to, you know, take care of the animals in it, you know, whether it's fencing you're putting up or food that you're feeding them. That is also part of the whole contract that you have with the animals.
Yeah, and when we had spoken about the turkeys, it was at about $75 per bird. I started at 13. I lost 2 within the first week, taking that into consideration. And then by the time I actually was able to process them, because every place was so busy, they dressed out between 24 and 27 pounds.
Wow.
I'm sure every one of your turkeys that you probably bought at the store was 9 pounds to 14. So imagine the extra I guess the monetary, endeavor I had to take, because big birds eat a lot of food, and it just got to a point where now that I know what to look for, how big they should be, and certain ages, just having that first time of not really calling it a failure, but learned experience, and know, a 50-pound live bird's going to be a 27-pound
Wow.
process bird. So taking them earlier, writing down what I'm paying for food, like Joel does. I feed my pigs acorns as well. I mean, they're the pot bellies, but they're great snacks. Any weed that I have, grass clippings, anything green goes in the pig pen.
Yeah.
The goats, I have a fence system that I move them around to different areas of the yard. They have their main yard, and then I put them in different places so they can pasture, because they'll eat 2 bales of hay a day if I allow them to. And
Wow.
there's a shortage right now in Maine where it's $9, $10, $11, $12 for
Wow.
premium, even decent hay. And it's something, thinking about that, for the winter time, I've actually contacted folks in New York, and upstate New York, and I'm going to start wholesaling hay from New York to Maine.
Wow.
Prices that way. And just, I think farming it's not about today, it's not about tomorrow. I'm thinking like 6 months down the road.
Yeah.
I'm already thinking about March. I'm definitely thinking about January, February, what it's going to be like. And then I'm thinking about July, what I want to do to make sure my processing next year isn't as bad as it was this year, because I went so overboard planning all this stuff and having this great time. And then I went back to work in July, and when I'm not home, there was so much food. So being able to, take the food I grow and actually enjoy it, I guess, instead of throwing it in the pig pen or throwing it to the chickens, because the pigs ate great this summer. They had every vegetable under the sun. They had fruit. They had all sorts of good stuff to eat, because it just was going bad on the vine. So
One of the things that Joel Salatin says is that oftentimes, before people had garbage pickup and all the other amenities that we have now, that go into the landfill, if you had a couple of chickens, half a dozen chickens and a pig, you never had to worry about, that, and the compost heap, everything went. And I think that, we forget about, I share some of our leftovers with the dogs, but I wish I could have a chicken, but I have a Jack Russell, so that's that. So anyway, I'm going to open it up now for questions, if anybody has got some questions that they want to ask Brandon.
I have a quick question, Brandon, and that is, what is a potbelly pig versus a regular pig?
So potbelly pigs, actually, if I will show you a picture. So they're miniature pigs. They're only about 1.5 feet tall. They grow to be about 40 pounds. Full-size pigs, obviously, are standard pigs. Potbelly pigs, they are obviously like regular pigs, where they don't have sensors to regulate food consumption. So a potbelly pig will get to be, 300 pounds if you allow them to, but it's really unhealthy. If I can do it, I haven't shown right here, share screen. Oh,
Yeah, thank you for sharing your
disabled.
knowledge.
Host disabled, participant screen sharing. All right. Well, so
Are
they're
you unable to share? Let's see.
No, they're mini. So they're just miniature pigs.
I'm going to put you on speaker view, and let's see if you can share your screen now. For some reason, yeah. Try screen sharing now.
No.
It still won't let you?
That's all right. There's another way I can do it.
it-
So potbelly pigs in New Guinea, in Asian territories, that's primary source of meat.
mm,
But yeah, I just like them. They're cute little pets. I would never eat
Right.
them. I think they're too fatty, but
okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank
That
you.
is, and that's the potbelly pigs you wouldn't eat?
no.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
maybe it's just because I think that they're so smart. I mean, pigs are really intelligent anyway, but I just had one as a pet as a kid, and I just really enjoy them.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm, great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think they were originally, I don't know for sure, but I think they were originally kind of developed for people who had small land areas, you know, like city pigs. Um, I don't know that for sure, and I can't remember. Oh, look, there you are.
Yeah.
There they are. Look at them.
I always like these little virtual backgrounds.
Very
for them.
good.
So
That was smart.
yeah, so this one is Lincoln, and that one is Lonnie.
Lincoln and Bonnie?
Lincoln and Lonnie.
Lonnie.
Yeah.
Lonnie. Okay.
Lonnie, yeah.
Nice.
They're fun.
That's
Is
great.
Lincoln a potbelly pig?
Yeah, they both are. They're 3 years old. They're only, God, they're a foot and a half tall. They just, and they'll eat. I mean, they pretty much eat anything a normal pig would. Yeah, they're cute little guys. If you've ever been to the Freiburg Fair or any of the fairs around where you live, they're generally in the petting zoo area that you'd see with the kiddos, like with goats and chickens and ducks and stuff like that. They're the little tiny pigs in there. So they can live to be like 15 or 20 years old. Regular pigs, probably date around like 10 to 15 years. So
I would imagine some of the other heritage breeds, though, are probably are live longer than the industrial breeds, just like all the other kinds.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm actually. So when I was a kid, we raised Berkshires.
Mm-hmm.
It's a breed my dad had as a kid. He really liked. So that's something. I looked at them. They're the all pink pigs. I personally want to raise old spot pigs. So it's a heritage breed that actually almost went extinct, the purebred form. But I guess looking at what kind of animals I want to have, you really have to look, I guess, regionally. And with that breed, they're really good foragers. And when they dress out, the foraging, it actually benefits the animal more. Where some breeds, a lot of people will leave them in 4x4 cages their whole life,
Oh,
get as much food into them as humanly possible in 3 months, and that's the way they spend their life. With these animals, I want to have them live a little bit longer, enjoy their life, a little bit longer, and get to, I don't know, get to just live not in a little box, but enjoy the sun, enjoy well-balanced little diet.
And Brendan, I'm sorry, how many acres do you have again?
We have 11.
11, great.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I was telling Susan, though, I guess it doesn't even matter how many acres anyone has. If you have a spot out front that you're growing grass, the grass could easily be torn up. You could put some manure down and you could be growing corn or strawberries or asparagus or tomatoes. And it is funny. What is it? Is it the French who started growing grass and clearing fields to grow grass?
I think it was Americans, but I don't know. Maybe they brought it over
Yeah,
from
I can't
Europe.
remember. Whoever started that tradition, it's so silly. We have to take care of this thing that doesn't benefit us at all, except it makes the front yard or backyard look pretty. And I really
think
am all
royalty
about
started it. Yeah.
Yeah, just putting in a vegetable or two, and doing it that way, even if it's in a plant pot. Just having one thing, have one thing you're really good at. If you can't do a million things, like on my farm, I have way too many projects right now. If you like salsa, grow some tomatoes, grow onions, grow peppers, and you can make your own salsa. It's guacamole, same thing. Avocado tree in your house.
Can you get fruit off of an avocado tree in your house?
Oh yeah, you can put it out. You can put it on the side. I don't personally. I have a good friend in Freeport who has an avocado tree in his house that he brings out every summer, and then he brings it back in the winter. But he gets avocados, and he also has
Oh my
2 fig
God.
trees. He
Wow.
brings in, yeah.
That's great. Wow, I didn't know you could do that. I mean, they're huge trees. I've seen them in California. I was so excited when I went out to California and I was picking them up off the ground, I was like, wow, look at this. This is great. But yeah, I didn't know you could do that. But you can do a lot of really interesting things. I know we're going to, Groundhog Day is the switch off from winter to spring, because that's when things start to sprout and grow. So maybe I'll bring you back on and talk about how to grow a little plant. But even if you live in an apartment, you can grow sprouts. You need all you really need is the seeds and the water to get them to sprout. And if you've got a window that gets a little bit of sunshine, you can get a little greenery as well. I think that growing your own food, even if it's just something like sprouts, is so important, to be connected in that way to that whole cycle of life.
Most
And
definitely. There's even packages where you can grow your own lettuce.
oh yeah,
And there's fortunately, genetically modified foods, a lot of seeds that we have now, they have made it really easy to grow in low light, no light, low mineral, low fertilizer conditions. And being able to grow lettuce in an apartment and just clip off that plant and have a fresh salad once or twice a week from lettuce you're growing in your house. I mean, that's amazing.
that's not genetically modified though, is it? It's just bred.
It's bred. It's bred and
It's
hybridized.
hybridized.
Yes, excuse me, hybrids.
Yeah,
So
hybrids. Yeah.
yeah, I just assume it's all. I don't know. It's the magic of science, I guess.
Well, hybrid has been around for a while. People, crossbreeding. That's how you get a hybrid. But genetically modified is you take some shrimp DNA and you mix it in with the broccoli.
Oh.
Yeah. It's something that could never happen in nature, and it's a fairly expensive technical process, which is why they, force you to pay for those seeds and do not allow you to grow them, even though they will grow wild on their own. Most of the canola left the farm and is growing. The genetically modified canola is growing wild in the ditches now. So most canola and corn also grows very easily. So those seeds can reproduce on their own. But they contain DNA from some strange things. What's Kay showing us? Oh, her sprouts. There she is. She's growing her sprouts in her apartment. They had a little garden in their house, but now she's going to be stuck with her sprouts and whatever she can grow on her sun porch and at camp, I guess. Winterflower, you've got your hand up.
Yes, Brandon, you were talking, of course, about how you house the animals and what have you. In Maine, what predators do you have that could affect the animals? And, what did you do in order to keep them safe?
So that's a really good question, Winterflower. There's all sorts of stuff that I've had to deal with, that my parents have dealt with. When I was younger, like I said, they raised rabbits, and my dad would either start with 50 turkeys, and we'd probably have about 200 by the time Thanksgiving, because he started them every month, just 50 at a time. We've had fox come in and kill all of them. I just had a Fisher cat take out my 9 chickens. We've had bear, bobcat. We had an owl stealing our ducks. When I was a kid, we actually caught the owl in the middle of the night. It was a giant gray horned owl trying to take a duck, and one of our geese had actually attacked the owl, and the goose and the owl were fighting.
Wow.
We've had neighbors' dogs come in and kill all of our turkeys one year. It was 2 weeks before Thanksgiving.
Oh my God.
I think my mom actually was just telling me the story. I had no idea as a child where all the turkeys went, but found out that a neighbor's dog had killed them.
Wow.
I hear stories about
200? Killed 200 turkeys?
100. It was 120.
Holy shit.
Killed all of them and somehow got out of the pen. The gentleman saw his dog covered in blood and he actually hunted down my dad's house, walked through the woods. I don't know how he found out about it, but he paid for all the turkeys,
Wow.
the weight of all the turkeys. I mean, it was thousands of dollars, and it was within 15 minutes.
Oh, they're fast.
Yeah. Fox come and go. They'll pick off animals. So right now I'm learning. Unfortunately, I've learned from a lot of mistakes, a lot of Facebook groups, forums about what other people are doing to keep animals safe. The Fishers, I thought I had my chicken coop protected, and sometimes you just don't notice a little thing, and a predator that's probably been walking around that coop. He could have walked it every day for the last 2 years, and finally one little slip up that I made was the reason why the chickens got killed.
Did they eat the chickens or just kill them?
They ripped them out of their pen and rip their heads off, and they will leave them for dead. They don't actually eat the meat. I don't know if they eat the giblets or the neck part. They just killed all of them. Everything was there. They were dragged in the woods, and that was sad, and just senseless killing, I guess. Especially as somebody, I raised my animals as pets and as food, and just to have something come in and kill it so senselessly. I guess if it had just disappeared, a fox will take them, a bobcat will take them, bear. We have coy dog in this area, or coy wolves, so they're wild dogs. And some animals, obviously, it's predator and prey mentality, but it's just sad when.
You were also telling me that you had the the owl that was hunting the rats around your chicken coop.
Yeah, so it was before. So the other night I was out cleaning up wood, and I heard something fly over my head and was able to get my spotlight, and I actually saw a barred owl in the tree above me fly over to my duck and chicken coop, where luckily I have covered it with special netting, but I realized that he's eating the rats and the chipmunks and all the rodents that are actually stealing my animals' food. So it's this, as a farmer, it's a happy side. I'm happy with my relationship with this owl because I've set it up so my animals will not be affected by the predator. People get guard dogs. Having guard dogs in the pen. I have 4 dogs currently. I couldn't imagine anybody actually living out with the animals. They all love the animals. All my animals get along really well. 4 dogs, 2 cats. I was telling Susan, I think Roberta, I actually have a bunny that runs around my house that's litter box trained. It's just really nice. All my animals just get along really well. The turkeys and the goats actually lived in my dog pen right off my back porch. all summer, and they would come up onto the porch and hang out, and sometimes they would end up in the house. But
That's great.
you know, it's just, I guess, taking the time to think outside the box and ask other people. I've learned a lot from Facebook forums, Facebook groups. Craigslist has forums you can go on for different animals, different gardening techniques, especially in your area. If you, obviously, I live in Maine. I know some of you guys are in other parts, New York, Washington, D.C., Maryland area. Northern Maine is a whole nother animal. Yeah, so it's just figuring out where you live, what you have around you, and making it as safe as humanly possible. And my big spotlight out back is definitely going to help. So, you know.
Do you turn it off and on, or is it on
No,
all
it's,
the time?
dusk to dawn. Yeah.
That's
Yes.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Chris has her hand up. I think she's got a question. So I'll let you unmute yourself, Chris. Yeah.
Okay. So, Brandon, you were talking about growing vegetables and that this year you had more than you could even eat yourself. Is there a way, or is there a place, a market for that extra produce so that you don't end up having to feed it to the animals? Can you have a farm stand, or are there so many of those around you that, you know, it wouldn't generate any income?
So actually, as a kid, we actually sold. We did have a farm stand. Me and my sister spent every day at my grandmother's house across the street selling strawberries. In the summer, it was a way for us to have responsibility. We also sold squash, tomatoes, corn. Anytime any vegetable came up, we'd sell it. It was never really for the money, but it was more or less just a share. And I think for me, there's just this, I don't know, I don't grow enough where I think it would be viable to sell it, but I just enjoy giving it away to people. And even we had a stand outside when I was a kid too, that just free vegetables, you know, a sign that said just free vegetables, take what you need. And just being able to share with neighbors. I brought all my neighbors boxes of vegetables every 2 weeks, and just, you know, pick what you want out of there, please. I mean, because I know on my end what's going to happen to it.
Yeah.
And if I was able to actually give out, you know, 50 tomatoes or cherry tomatoes today, or cucumbers, and not have them just go bad. So, but there is definitely a market. And again, using online resources, I think that's the biggest thing. In Maine especially, there's a lot of different groups that you can go on. Homesteading, if you type into Facebook, if you have Facebook, whether you use it for friends or not, just having that extra resource that you can use it for homesteading, for gardening, if you want to find out where local produce markets are, local butchers, CSAs in your community supported agriculture. That's a great way to get fresh vegetables. And I've actually thought about starting one of those, but I guess a lot of people in my area have, because there's 3 that have popped up within 5 miles of my house. And it just really shows how many people are going back to that. I don't know. It's awesome. I don't know.
It
Well,
really is. It's a great thing, and I think the pandemic has helped with that as well. So I think that's really good. Did you have a question, Roberta? You're unmuted. I just didn't know if you had a question or not.
Well, something I was curious about, if you use the manure that your animals produce as fertilizer for your vegetables?
I do, yeah. Yeah, every animal has a different acidity level in their manure. Some animals you can use right into the ground, like pigs. It's not hot. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that term, but cow manure is very, very hot and very acidic when it comes out. Same with goats and rabbits. And different plants actually like different kinds of animals' manure. So you can, I have different piles of animals, manure processing, and I turn it once in a while and add different nutrients to it, just the straw, leaves, just let it do its thing. I actually thought about starting worm casting. So it's allowing
Wow.
worms to just regenerate and putting my compost in there. And actually, it's funny, it just popped into my mind. Another random thing at the dump that I always see are refrigerators and freezers, and how burying a freezer would be a great place to start a worm farm. But while we were talking today, so it's just using that. I mean, that's such a valuable resource. And any farmer that you see, that you drive by a farm, they will be happy to give you buckets of whatever animal they have on that farm for free, buckets of manure,
Yeah.
because there's an endless supply.
So, yeah, I think that there's all these niceties, all these different, it's a very complex, I mean, it's an ecosystem. It's very complex, and it's fascinating, and I'm so grateful that you took the time to share with us tonight and talk to us about this, because I think it's so valuable, um, especially for those of us who live in the city, who don't get close as you get to the land, and to understand that, and to just realize that things don't just magically appear in the grocery store. It takes a considerable amount of effort, and the CSAs are wonderful. When you get to taste the food that's fresh, and it has so much more nutrients in it. I mean, I think part of the reason that we overeat is because there aren't the nutrients in our food, and um, so our bodies crave more food. And I think that has been one of the things that we have seen from the decision that was made in the 70s to go to industrial farming and making cheap food, and hasn't done us any service, and has been detrimental, not just in this country but really globally. So I think the tide is shifting, and that's really good. And so it's really wonderful to see people like you who are doing, who are taking this up again. And I'd recommend to anyone Joel Salatin's books, Salatin, if you want to read more about farming. He is a wonderful author, and talks, has a lot of different books, and he's a little saucy, and different. I think he and I probably have very different political opinions in many ways, but he certainly knows about the land, and cares deeply about it, and the economy as well. So he's got um, some really wonderful things to share in his books as well. And Roberta gave me, I was looking for this earlier when you were, talking about the heritage breeds. This comes from the Livestock Conservancy, and they are a wonderful organization that's dedicated to preserving the rare breeds, and the ancient breeds, and some of them go back thousands of years, and others don't.
We had one for Thanksgiving.
We did.
We had a standard bronze this year. Susan
Yeah.
cooked it. It was delicious. It was great.
Yeah.
I think
Brandon, what breeds of turkey did you have this year?
So unfortunately, we just had the regular meat birds. Usually my dad would actually grow the bronze turkeys. I don't know their full name, but he stopped growing those because of the wild turkeys in our area. He thinks they flew out of the pen and joined the wild turkeys. One day we just lost 25 of them, and they just disappeared. And then he started seeing a large herd of birds in our backyard, and he knew that we had wild turkeys out back, but their numbers multiply so fast that he thinks a bunch of his birds flew out. So he started doing just the white birds. But I want to get into raising, I think what they're blue. I don't know if with the book right there, Susan. They're almost
Let's
this
see if I can-
beautiful blue, gray feathered turkey. Just really, really pretty. There's just some really pretty turkey breeds as weird
Yeah,
as
they have the Beltsville, the black, bourbon red, chocolate turkeys, Jersey buffs, lavender turkeys, midget whites, Narragansetts. And I thought that they
They're
would say which
Narragansetts.
page it's in. Narragansetts, is that
I
it?
think those are the ones. They're almost like this a pretty blue gray. Just
Let
I
me
don't
see
know.
if I
just
can find them.
try growing. Just try raising different animals, and having that experience. I guess just hearing my dad and my grandmother talk about back on the farm with the hosses and the cows and God, my dad had a pet skunk as a kid, a pet mallard, and a cow or a calf that would follow him around all over the yard. And it's just these, the weird memories he has that he was able to share with me. I would love to just share them with my nieces and nephews, maybe children, my friends' kids, because a lot of people don't get that experience to raise a goat in their backyard. Hey, let's go over to Brandon's house and go hang out with his goats. Set up a lawn chair. If you would like to have a mimosa in my goat pen, you can drink with my goats. Come on
There
over.
you go. Drink with the goats. I love that.
I'm all for that.
Actually, Brandon, when you're talking about the animals and everything, I thought, wow, the next time I come to Maine and my grandchildren are there, can we come over to your farm? Because it would just be
please.
so great.
Please, that's one nice thing.
Bring me.
Yeah,
I want to go too.
the animals I ended up with, it's just amazing that I'm blessed to have them because the 3 oldest goats I have were raised by children. So my 2-year-old niece goes in there and they don't mess with her at all. They go up and lick her. They're just so calm. The 2 youngest ones are super sweet to them. I go in there, obviously I'm an adult male. They mess around with me, but the pigs, the same thing. The pigs are so sweet, the chickens, and it's just, I don't know, maybe that's part of the nurture of that, or we were just meant to be, and that's maybe why they'll be pets and not food. But then, as I said earlier, it's making the contract at the beginning of our relationship. I knew getting animals off of Craigslist, I probably would not slaughter them. But if I do it a different way. But yeah, please, Southern Maine, it's not too far from. I think we're about 14 hours away. So if you're ever up in Maine, want to come up and visit some goats, you're definitely more than welcome. And Sue, you're always welcome.
I thank you. Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think our contract with domestic animals goes back probably around 10,000 years for some of the breeds and some of the animals, and the contract we made was that we would give them a good life, and they would give us in return. And I think that we broke that contract with the industrial breeding, and we are paying for it. But I think that it doesn't have to be that way, and if we can, we can open our hearts to and open our minds to the possibilities, the endless possibilities that there are. And I think that you've really done us a great service tonight to show us this window into your life and how you are farming with love, I would say. Really big heart, and I appreciate so much that you have been with us tonight. And I'm going to say goodbye and stop the recording, but we may stay on a little bit longer and chit chat.